Cryptocurrency companies are playing a game of poker with the Securities and Exchange Commission, making bold threats to leave the U.S. as the regulator steps up pressure on the industry to toe the line. Major players are hoping that the SEC and Washington takes what crypto watchers see as bluffs seriously and soften the hard line that regulators have taken on the industry. Executives at firms including crypto exchange Coinbase and blockchain services company Ripple have piled on with comments laying into the SEC and signaling plans to shift business overseas in a bid to rally support and send a message to U.S. politicians concerned that the country may miss out on a key technological innovation. Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong said last week that the SEC was on a lone crusade with its tough actions against certain crypto companies. He added that Chair Gary Gensler had taken an anti-crypto view, despite earlier being a supporter of the industry during his time as an economics professor at the MIT Sloan School of Management. The SEC is a bit of an outlier here, Armstrong told CNBC Dan Murphy in an interview in Dubai. I don't think Gensler is necessarily trying to regulate the industry as much as maybe curtail it, but he's created some lawsuits, and I think it's quite unhelpful for the industry in the U.S. writ large. Brad Garlinghouse, CEO of Ripple, also tore into the SEC this week. When asked for his message to Gensler as the company announced an expansion into Dubai, he quipped, "Who?" before later saying Ripple will have spent $200 million defending itself against a lawsuit initiated by the regulator by the time it is over. I find it as a company that started in the United States and as somebody who is a U.S. citizen, it's sad. I have sadness about this. The U.S. is getting passed not just by a little bit, but by a lot, Garlinghouse said. The tough thing about this is you have a country that I think has put politics ahead of policy, and that's not a good decision if you're trying to invest in the economy. Dubai and Europe have proven to be much more favorable markets with their virtual asset regulatory frameworks, Garlinghouse said, adding, the United States is definitely stuck. Garlinghouse, Armstrong, and other crypto bosses have made threats to leave the U.S., highlighting concern from the industry that the SEC's crackdown is becoming too harsh. The regulator has taken strong enforcement actions against companies including Ripple, Coinbase, Kraken, and Paxos, accusing each of flouting securities laws. The SEC's contention is that most tokens in the market may qualify as securities, which would subject them to much stricter requirements around registration and disclosure. Crypto firms naturally have denied assets they issue or list on their platforms should be treated as securities. With the rising crackdown on cryptocurrencies in the U.S., the very obvious question would be, will crypto industries leave the U.S.? As we explore the possibilities together in this video, don't forget to give us a like, subscribe, and drop your comments. The biggest fear of crypto companies is that regulation will cause panic among crypto investors and prices will go down. To look confident, even arrogant, is a common tactic of crypto company CEOs. They think this will translate into investors' confidence, overconfidence in some cases, and will encourage further irrational behavior among investors. Egg hodl, hold on for dear life, even when markets are falling. Ripple's Garlinghouse has been threatening to move his company's headquarters overseas since 2020. In October that year, he said the UK, Switzerland, Singapore, Japan, and the United Arab Emirates were under consideration for Ripple's potential move abroad. That hasn't happened yet. Coinbase's chief, meanwhile, suggested at a London fintech conference in April that the firm would consider options of investing more abroad, including relocating from the U.S. to elsewhere, if the exchange doesn't get regulatory clarity in the U.S. A month later, Armstrong said Coinbase is not going to relocate overseas. The U.S. is a huge market for the industry, with over 50 million Americans saying they own some crypto, according to a survey conducted by Morning Consult for Coinbase. There's a much greater focus on the international markets for those firms. But at the top end of the market, personally, I just can't see that ever happening that you leave the United States market completely. Jonathan Levin, co-founder of Chainalysis, told CNBC in an interview in London. Crypto bosses are playing up to some officials' concerns that the U.S. has become shrouded in regulatory uncertainty, while other jurisdictions like the European Union and UK have charged forward with proposed regulatory frameworks for digital assets. Hester Peirce, a commissioner at the SEC, said at a Financial Times conference last week that the U.S. was shooting ourselves in the foot by not having a regulatory regime in the U.S. She praised the EU on its progress with waving through laws for the crypto industry. The EU is expected to bring in the first comprehensive set of regulations for digital assets, known as markets and crypto assets, sometime in 2024. It's really commendable that Europe was able to get that done so quickly, Peirce said, according to Reuters. If we built a good regulatory regime, people would come. I think you will see that with MICA. Diego Ballon Ocio, a partner at law firm Clifford Chance, said other jurisdictions, including the UK and EU, are changing their legislative frameworks to create clear regulatory regimes for exchanges. Binance, the world's largest crypto exchange, recently said it has become more difficult for the company to operate into the US and that it was minded to establish a regulated operation in the UK. Patrick Hillman, the company's chief strategy officer, said the US has been very confusing over the past 6 months, pointing to the SEC's actions against Coinbase as a sign of how the country is in a weird place. While the U.S. crypto industry might currently be throwing out empty threats right now, there could be a real issue if regulators in America don't move forward with thoughtful regulation. Crypto exchange Binance has announced that it would cease operations in Canada, citing the challenging regulatory environment. "We had high hopes for the rest of the Canadian blockchain industry," the company said in a Friday tweet. "Unfortunately, new guidance related to stable coins and investor limits provided to crypto exchanges makes the Canada market no longer tenable for Binance at this time." In February, the Canadian Securities Administrators, CSA, revealed new guidance that prohibited crypto asset trading platforms within the country from allowing customers to buy or deposit stable coins without the CSA's prior approval. Obtaining approval would require the crypto trading platform to pass the CSA's various due diligence checks. In its Friday tweet, Binance added that it did not agree with the new regulations but still hopes to work with Canadian regulators to further develop a regulatory framework around cryptocurrencies. Over the past year, Binance has received increased scrutiny from North American regulators and appears to be ramping down operations in the region. Earlier this year, Binance said it was considering severing ties with its U.S. business partners. Binance co-founder and CEO Changpeng Zhao, CZ, is a Canadian citizen, with the company describing its exit from the country as holding sentimental value. "My conclusion is that I think it is more saber-rattling than a genuine desire to up and leave the U.S., but if the SEC continues down the path it is on, many firms will have no choice but to try another way of doing business. It is existential," Daniel Cifalve, a partner at BCLP law firm, told CNBC via email. In conclusion, the cryptocurrency industry's threats to leave the United States amid increased pressure from the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, may be seen as a strategic game of poker. While some industry leaders, including Ripple's CEO Brad Garlinghouse and Coinbase's CEO Brian Armstrong, have openly criticized the SEC and hinted at shifting their businesses overseas, it remains to be seen whether these threats will materialize. The U.S. market is significant for the crypto industry, and completely leaving it may not be a viable option. However, the industry's concerns about regulatory uncertainty and the SEC's tough stance on cryptocurrencies are valid. If thoughtful and clear regulations are not put in place in the U.S., it could lead to significant challenges for the crypto industry and potentially force companies to explore alternative paths. The future of cryptocurrencies in the United States hangs in the balance, and only time will tell how regulators and industry players will navigate this complex landscape. What are your thoughts on the potential impact of the SEC's regulatory actions on the cryptocurrency industry in the United States? Do you think crypto industries would really leave the U.S.? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching.